As a mechanic, the extra deck is balanced around the fact that extra deck monsters should require more than one monster in order to summon. And while extra deck monsters that only require one material do exist, they're rare and often freely repurposed monsters that have outlived their usefulness on the field. Today we'll be discussing the best extra deck monsters that only require one material to summon and why this method of summoning makes them good. And starting us off at number 10, we have Salamangreat Almiraj. This is a Link 1 Fire Cybers monster that can be summoned using one normal summon monster with 1000 or less attack as its material. It has two effects. First, as a quick effect, you can tribute Almiraj in order to target a monster you control and give it destruction protection from card effects for the rest of the turn. Second, it has a hard once per turn. When a normal summon monster you control is destroyed by battle while Salamangreat Almiraj is in your graveyard, you can special summon it. While Almiraj might seem underwhelming at first glance, its utility becomes apparent when you realize the main appeal of Almiraj isn't its effects, but rather its summoning condition. The ability to put any monster with less than 1000 attack into the graveyard by normal summoning and linking off with Almiraj is useful in a myriad of decks, often turning cards that otherwise would be bricks in the hand into useful starters and extenders. It's also notable that Almiraj lacks a restriction preventing it from being used as a link material the turn it's link summoned, drastically boosting the consistency of Cybers decks by allowing them to start their plays only using hand traps and extenders in a pitch. On the other hand, leaving Almiraj in the field is also completely acceptable and often useful if your deck doesn't need to clear the extra monster zone to make plays. The ability to give any of your monsters protection from destruction effects at quick effect speed is excellent insulation for boss monsters with powerful negates, allowing those monsters to save their negates for your opponent's important engine pieces as opposed to their going second tools and board breakers. Overall, Almiraj tends to be a great utility card in a wide variety of decks due to its ability to protect and start game-winning plays simultaneously. And at number 9, we have Masked Hero Dark Law. This is a level 6 Dark Warrior fusion monster with 2400 attack. It must be summoned by the effect of Mass Change, a unique summoning requirement shared by all Masked Hero monsters. And while Dark Law is on the field, any card sent to your opponent's graveyard is banished instead. In addition to this, if your opponent adds cards to their hand except by drawing, Dark Law can trigger its other effect to banish a random card from your opponent's hand. Now, a one-sided Macrocosmos and a hand rip are nothing to scoff at, making Masked Hero Dark Law an exceptional boss monster capable of stealing games all on its own. Banishing any card that would go to your opponent's grave is sometimes enough to win the game by itself against certain decks, and its banishing hand rip can finish off those that struggle but don't instantly lose to the floodgate. But now it's time to address the elephant in the room. Why is a fusion monster on a list of monsters that only require one material? While you would be right to assume that in general, fusion monsters require multiple monsters to fuse together as per their name, Masked Hero monsters are a unique archetype of fusion monsters that can only be summoned using one material. The first line of text on all Masked Hero monsters states the following: must be special summoned by Mask Change. Due to this restriction, there are only 3 cards in the game that can special summon Masked Hero monsters: Mask Change 2, and Form Change. These quick play spells all functionally fulfill the same role as special summoning a Masked Hero monster from the extra deck, with each coming with its own set of restrictions regarding which monsters can be used as materials, as well as which Masked Hero monsters can be summoned using a given material. Of the 3, the only 2 that typically see play are Mask Change and Mask Change 2. The original Mask Change primarily sees play in hero decks, while Mask Change 2 allows for Masked Hero Dark Law to be splashed at the cost of discard and any level 5 or lower dark monster on the field. In addition to acts as a Dark Law, the other primary benefit of the Mask Change spells is the ability to send monsters from the field to the graveyard for cost at quick effect speed. This allows monsters with important activated effects to dodge on-field negations, since by the time the monster's effect resolves, it's no longer on the field and is therefore unaffected by the likes of Infinite Impermanence and Skill Drain. Overall, Masked Hero Dark Law is a great payoff for the various Mask Change cards. While it does technically meet the criteria of only requiring one material in order to summon, the additional requirements of the Mask Change spells prevent it from ranking any higher on this list. And at number 8, we have Cybers' pile's newest toy, Link Decoder. This is a Link 1 Dark Cybers monster that requires one level 4 or lower Cybers monster as material in order to summon, and has the hard once per turn effect to special summon itself from the graveyard if it's used as material for a Cybers Link monster with 2300 or more original attack. However, if Link Decoder is summoned this way, it will banish itself upon leaving the field. As a monster, being able to special summon yourself from the graveyard is a bannably strong offense. While many cards with this effect were strong in formats prior to the introduction of Link summoning, the ramifications that come with it in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Are far beyond anything duelists 10 years ago could even imagine. Introduced alongside Link monsters was the Cybers typing, which connects many otherwise unrelated Link summoning archetypes. This was done so that cards that generically support the Cybers typing could be made to simultaneously bolster these decks. However, this design decision came with the perhaps unintended side effect of turning the Cybers typing itself into an archetype, resulting in a similar situation to the Dragon typing, where generic Dragon good stuff pile decks eventually became powerful enough to become the real competitive threat we know now called Dragon Link. In order for typing to reach this level of self-actualization, it needs enough effective consistency tools to create a proper engine, as well as strong payoffs for that engine. Cards like Link Decoder and MathMech Circular are stellar examples of this kind of generic engine pieces that the decks need, providing Cyber's decks with ridiculous levels of consistency and resiliency for minimal main deck investment. While Link Decoder hasn't had time to see much competitive play in the TCG due to being released relatively recently as of this video's writing, if its success in the OCG is anything to go by, it's hard to see this extra deck analog of Glow Bulb as anything less than a force to be reckoned with. And scowling over at number 7 is Linguriboh. This is a Link 1 Dark Cybers monster that requires one level 4 lower Cybers monster as its material, and contribute itself at quick effect speed to negate the effect of and banish a trap card activated by your opponent as a hard once per turn. It also has another hard once per turn effect, while in the graveyard, allowing you to tribute and add Ignister extra deck monster you control to special summon it. Cyber's decks often use Linguriboh to fulfill many of the same needs that Salamangreat Almiraj generically satisfies. It's often used to easily send a Cyber's monster from your field to the graveyard because of its summon requirement of a level 4 or lower Cyber's monster, a condition much more tailored to Cyber stacks than requiring a normal summon monster. Despite this, Linguriboh also finds itself in a wide variety of non-Cyber stacks due to the prevalence of Nightmare Corruptor Eebly. Eebly is a level 2 Cyber's monster that prevents its control from special summoning non-Link monsters, and can special summon itself to your opponent's side of the field if it's sent from its owner's field to the graveyard. This floodgate effect to lock your opponent out of special summoning anything except Link monsters is so powerful that against some decks, getting Eebly onto your opponent's field is a win condition in of itself. To deal with this, decks that can't natively deal with this floodgate will often run Linguriboh in either the extra or side deck as an insurance policy specifically for Eebly. That way, if she does ever end up on their side of the field, they can simply link her away for Linguriboh and continue business as usual. In both of the aforementioned applications, decks that can't afford to will often leave Linguriboh on the field for its trap negate to insulate their boards against the many powerful trap cards that exist. This is what gives Linguriboh the edge over most other Link 1 monsters, resulting in seeing play both in and out of its native archetype. And ascending into number 6 is Cyber Dragon Infinity. This card is a rank 6 Light Machine Xyz monster with 2100 attack, that on a once per turn can be Xyz summoned using a Cyber Dragon Nova you control as its full materials. It gains 200 attack for each material attached to it, and has 2 effects with soft once per turns. On your turn, you can target any face-up attack position monster in the field and attach it to itself as a material. Then on either player's turn, whenever a card or effect is activated, you can detach a material from Infinity to negate the activation of that card and destroy it. Now, Cyber Dragons are a blind second OTK deck with incredibly powerful monsters and unique removal tools, but come with the downside of requiring their opponent to control a monster to do nearly anything. These cards are already so powerful that, if a player is aware that your opponent is playing Cyber Dragons, it's almost always in their best interest to make the Cyber Dragon player go first to prevent their opponent from having access to the best interactions in their deck. This is where Cyber Dragon Infinity comes in. While not anywhere near as powerful as Cyber Dragon's ability to go second, Infinity at least gives them a game plan when going first. By using Machine Duplication and any level 4 or lower Cyber Dragon on the field, you can special summon 2 of the original Cyber Dragons from your deck due to the name-changing effect of the lower level Cyber Dragons. These level 5 Cyber Dragons can then be overlaid for Cyber Dragon Nova, which can then be used to Xyz summon Infinity, often leaving them with an Omni Negate, often backed by the aforementioned Salamangreat Almiraj to try and survive to turn 3. However, while its namesake archetype certainly makes good use of Cyber Dragon Infinity, no deck has ever made more use of its negate or unique summon mechanic than the historically tier 0 Perform Mage Performapal decks of early 2016. Primarily enabled by the rapidly banned non-once per turn Perform Mage Plushfire, Perform Mage Performapals were arguably the best rank 4 turbo deck to exist prior to the introduction of Link Summoning, barring Zodiacs who egregiously cheated the criteria. By abusing the incredible Perform Mage, Performapal, and Draco Slayer level 4 extenders, like a well-oiled machine, players could easily make a 3-material Tellarknight Tolmaeus to use its effect to Xyz summon any non-number rank 5 Xyz monster using itself as a material to make Cyber Dragon Nova, and therefore Cyber Dragon Infinity. Adding an Omni Negate to the already ludicrous board this deck made for the time was the last straw for many players, leading to one of the largest exodus of players from Yu-Gi-Oh! In the history of the game. This prompted the only emergency ban list Konami has ever released, taking the obvious problem cards that took advantage of Cyber Dragon Infinity to pasture. While Tolmaeus was released from the Forbidden List as late as 2022 and has seen nearly no competitive play since, it's not unlikely that Cyber Dragon Infinity will find its way back into deck lists if a modern rank 4 engine ever finds its way into the meta. And riding majestically into number 5 spot, we have Dingirsu, the Orcust of the Evening Star. This is a rank 8 Dark Machine monster with 2600 attack, and can be Xyz summoned using an Orcust Link monster you control as its full material. On summon, it has 2 effects you can choose between. Either you can send 1 card your opponent controls to the graveyard without targeting, or you can attach a banished machine monster to Dingirsu as a material. You can also detach one material from Dingirsu to prevent a card or cards you control from being destroyed, and you can only special summon one Dingirsu per turn. Now, Dingirsu is the primary boss monster of the Orcust archetype, and functions both as a vital piece of the Orcust combo and as one of its main bosses. Once renowned for its incredible consistency and payoff, Orcust is an archetype of dark machines with incredible graveyard effects that are brought together by the archetypes linked to Galatea, the Orcust automaton. The primary Orcust combo aims to make Galatea to set either Orchestrated Babble or Orchestrated Crescendo from the deck while filling the graveyard with Orcust monsters. While being a searchable Omni-Negate counter trap makes Crescendo an incredible target for Galatea, Orchestrated Babble is even better since it turns all effects of Orcust monsters into quick effects. Once a Babble has been set and immediately activated, Galatea is used as material for Dingirsu, which typically will use its first effect to attach a banished Orcust monster as a material. The combo ends with Dingirsu and any other body being linked away for IP Masquerena in order to both recycle the attached Orcust monster, set up IP to link summon your opponent's turn, and prepare Dingirsu to be special summoned for its non-targeting send on your opponent's turn. Within the context of Orcust, Dingirsu functions much like Tearlament's Kaleidoheart does in Tearlaments. Both have incredible on-summon effects that their respective engines enable as disruption, while simultaneously bolstering their engines through repeatability and extension. In design, Tearlaments could be seen as the successor to Orcust. Both encourage interaction on each player's turn, were dominant forces at the height of their power for this reason, tier 0, and have experienced fatal hits on the Forbidden and Limited list that hold them back from being meta-relevant to this day. While being able to make use of your hard once per turns on both players' turns is lethally efficient, the strategy that enabled Dingirsu's full potential remains in its damaged state, preventing it from ranking any higher on this list. And striking at number 4 is Sky Striker Ace Kagari. Kagari is a Link 1 fire machine that can be link summoned using any non-fire Sky Striker Ace monster as a material. Kagari has 1500 attack and 2 simple effects. First, it gains 100 attack for each spell card in your graveyard. And second, if it's summoned, you can target one Sky Striker spell in your graveyard and add it to your hand. However, similarly to Dingirsu, you can only summon one Sky Striker Ace Kagari per turn. The ability to recover a spell from the graveyard is incredibly powerful and actually a rare effect. This is because spells in Yu-Gi-Oh! Typically don't require any kind of resource to activate, and therefore can be used or even reused immediately for free. For this reason, cards that recover spells are often locked archetypally in order to prevent them from getting out of hand and to mitigate the damage they could do. Sky Striker Ace Kagari is an example of the latter, and has even spent time on the limited list alongside a myriad of other Sky Striker cards. While recovering spells is great in nearly all decks that play them, this effect is primarily limited by the fact that most playmaking cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Come with some kind of once per turn restriction. While all Sky Striker Ace Link monsters are limited to only being summonable once per turn, Sky Striker's spell cards break the once per turn trend by trading in raw strength for accessibility and repeatability. In an attempt to balance these spells without giving them once per turns, most Sky Striker spell cards often only provide single target control effects as opposed to massive board wipes, and only reach their full potential once at least 3 spells are in the Sky Striker's graveyard. To make matters more difficult, Sky Strikers suffer from a lack of powerful going first options, effectively locking it into a blind going second strategy in order to turn its engine online. While this can work against them, it also allows Sky Strikers to use popular going second staples in addition to its in-engine removal to clear the field and fill their graveyard before committing to more aggressive plays. Once the field has been softened by these board breakers, Sky Striker is then free to use Kagari to recover and loop whatever spells necessary to deal with the situation at hand. Generally, Sky Striker Mobilize Engage is Kagari's favorite target, searching any other Sky Striker card from the deck while also drawing a card with its bonus effect. From there, Afterburners and Widow Anchor are great at clearing the field of any remaining threats so that linkage can rapidly rack up lethal damage to bring the game to a close. And looming menacingly over the number 3 is Kashtira Arise-Heart. Arise-Heart is a rank 7 Dark Machine Xyz with 3000 attack and defense, and requires 3 level 7 monsters as materials, or can be Xyz summoned once per turn using one Kashtira monster you control during a turn in which Kashtira Shangri-La successfully activated its effect. While Arise-Heart is on the field, any cards that would be sent to the graveyard is banished instead. And once per chain, if a card is banished, you must attach one banished card to Arise-Heart as a material. Then, as a soft once per turn, you can detach 3 materials from Arise-Heart to target and banish any card in the field face down. With the banning of number 89 Diabolus the Mind Hacker, Kashtira was forced to alter their primary game plan from Zone Locking Turbo to either Shangri-La Control or Arise-Heart Pass. Unlike the rest of the cards in this list that, if applicable, prefer to be made with their alternative summoning condition, Kashtira make good use of both Arise-Heart's default and alternative summon conditions depending on the board state, chosen strategy, and opening hand. Kashtira Arise-Heart has been described by the community as a walking macrocosmos due to its floodgate effect that banishes all cards that would otherwise be sent to the graveyard. This effect instantly turns off many cards and strategies that require the graveyard in order to function, and would make Arise-Heart a force to be reckoned with without any need for further effects. Its targeting face-down banish is the icing on the cake, functionally similar to the currently banned Zodiac Trident for the ability to remove any card in the field while being easily accessible using a single material as a monster. For decks that can't deal with Arise-Heart's Macrocosmos effect, the common game plan for beating Kashtira is to simply draw the out. Or in other words, draw the powerful, unsearchable, generic cards that can easily beat Arise-Heart. It instantly loses to trooper removals such as Kaijus and Kurikara Div Incarnate, and can be stolen by using Triple Tactics talents to be used as materials for other monsters or even banish itself face down, removing Arise-Heart from the game permanently due to its limited status. While Kashtira Arise-Heart is extremely powerful, its extreme fragility due to its lack of inherent protection is what prevents it from ranking any higher on this list. And landing gracefully at number 2 is Expurrely Noir. Noir is a rank 7 Dark Fairy Xyz monster with 1100 attack and 2800 defense, and is typically Xyz summoned using a rank 2 monster with 5 materials that you control. Its activated effect allows you to detach 2 materials from Noir to target a card in your opponent's graveyard or on their field and place it on the bottom of their deck. And if Expurrely Noir has a level 1 purely monster as material, this activated effect can be used as a quick effect. Last but certainly not least, Expurrely Noir is unaffected by your opponent's activated effects while it has 5 or more materials. While Purely is a rather new and only has 2 main deck monsters to its name, a low monster count isn't necessarily an immediate sign of a bad deck. Similar to Runic, all Purely memory quick play spells have 2 effects. First, in order to make up for the low probability of drawing a Purely, every Purely memory can special summon a Purely monster from the deck at the cost of a discard, while also providing its own unique effect. Once on the field, each Purely main deck monster can use these memory spells as Xyz materials to Xyz summon that spell's corresponding Purely Xyz monster, with each spell providing a unique buff to the Purely Xyz monster they're attached to. In order to reach Expurrely Noir's summon condition of a rank 2 monster with 5 or more materials, Purely Delicious Memory is used in order to turn a Purely monster into an E-Purely Plump, which then can use its effect to attach Purely memories from both the graveyard and as they're activated from the hand. Once E-Purely Plump is well fed with 5 or more materials, it can be used as material to Xyz summon Expurrely Noir. While its inherent stats might seem unremarkable, the buffs and soft once per turn effects provided by the various memory spells are what really turn Expurrely Noir into an opposing, unaffected behemoth. Primarily used for its ability to summon E-Purely Plump, Purely Delicious Memory also gives a Purely Xyz monster attached to 300 attack and defense for each material attached to it. This goes along nicely with Purely Happy Memory, with each copy giving the attached Purely Xyz an extra attack during the battle phase. Purely Pretty Memory is where these effects start to get dangerous, giving its attached Purely additional disruption by allowing it to target a card your opponent controls and attach itself as a material by sending another card you control to the graveyard. However, the best memory by far is Purely Sleepy Memory. During your opponent's standby phase, each Sleepy Memory attached to a Purely Xyz will allow you to draw 1 card. Since its effect is a soft once per turn, it also makes each one effectively a per monster. Therefore, if an E-Purely Plump with 3 Sleepy Memories draws 3 cards, and is then used as material to Xyz summon Expurrely Noir using Pure Leap during your opponent's standby phase, since Expurrely Noir is a new monster, it will be able to use the effect of each Sleepy Memory again in order to draw a grand total of 6 cards. Drawing this many cards after performing your Purely combos almost guarantees that the cards you draw will be the remaining non-engine cards in your deck. Noir's ability to top this interaction with an incredibly hard-out tower-style boss monster is what allowed Purely decks to load themselves with ludicrous amounts of hand traps, playing similarly to meta Mathmic builds that rely on both in-engine and non-engine interaction to overwhelm your opponent. If your opponent couldn't out Noir and play through the various hand traps thrown at them, Purely could easily attack repeatedly with Noir or rebuild into an OTK-style board using E-Purely Happiness to win the game on the following turn. While a fully loaded Expurrely Noir is often enough to win the game by itself, with the limiting of Purely Delicious Memory, Access Noir is no longer guaranteed each game. With its best going first tool held hostage behind a Delicious Memory, Purely players have to rethink their entire game plan. Ever since its limitation, Purely has begun focusing primarily on a Ghost Second OTK build, not unlike Sky Striker, but with the added advantage of being able to make the final card on this list more threatening than any other deck has before. And rocking into number 1 spot is Divine Arsenal AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder. Zeus is a rank 12 Light Machine Xyz monster with 3000 attack and defense, and is almost always made using its once per turn alternative summon condition to Xyz summon itself using any Xyz monster you control as material during a turn in which an Xyz monster is battled, and it has 2 effects. First, as a quick effect, you detach 2 materials in order to send all of the cards on the field to the graveyard. Second, on a soft once per turn, Zeus can attach a card from the hand, deck, or extra deck as a material if another card he controls is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect. Now, while rarely a deck's plan A, as a plan B or C, Zeus's effect to clear the field as a quick effect is often enough to win the game on its own. The lack of a restriction on when or how often this effect can be used allows Zeus to reactively brute force its way through negation by climbing to higher and higher chain links, limited only by the amount of materials attached to it. Therefore, it's typically in a player's best interest to make Zeus with as many materials as possible, in order to make the best use of its board wipe. Each rank of Xyz monster has 1 or 2 preferred Zeus pilots, which are easy to make and come with some combination of protection and or ability to guarantee a battle occurring. Decks with easy access to rank 1s have their pick between Lyrillus Assembled Nightingale and Kiki Nagashi Fucho, while decks that make rank 2s and 3s will often use Sky Cavalry Centaurian and number 42 Fortune Tune respectively. If intending to make Zeus with a monster whose rank is between 1 and 3, Downward Magician is almost always included as a free material for Zeus, often making the difference between a 1 or 2 activation Zeus. On the other hand, decks with native access to rank 4s have access to 2 of the most widely available Zeus pilots, number 41 Baguska the Terrierly Tire Tapir, and Zodiacs. While Baguska provided utility as a stall tool and as a way to force an opponent's non-link monsters into defense position for a second turn attack, Zodiacs can aggressively stack materials while providing access to a direct attack, easily enabling 2 or 3 activations of Zeus. While Zeus's board wipe is incredibly powerful as a going second tool, there are actually some rather recent cases where Zeus has been included and made not for its ability to wipe the field, but instead as a way to remove an opponent's Xyz monster from the field. If an opponent's monster effect has activated during your main phase, Triple Tactics Talents can be used to steal an opponent's monster. Then, by battling with an opponent's stolen Xyz monster, you can use the material for Zeus to effectively remove that monster from the game. Using Zeus this way lines it more to other forms of trooper removal, like Underworld Goddess of the Closed World, and Kurikara Divicarnate as opposed to board breakers like Evenly Matched, but reinforces its role as a going second tool regardless. This tactic is most notoriously used to remove Kashtira Arise-Heart by abusing its mandatory trigger effect to attach a banished card as a material, guaranteeing that Triple Tactics Talent will be live. In fact, this method is so effective at dealing with Arise-Heart that many decks which play Triple Tactics Talents will include a Zeus in their extra deck even if they don't use any other Xyz monsters, explicitly to remove it from the field. While this counter strategy isn't limited to Arise-Heart and its potential applications, it certainly goes to show that the utility of Zeus lies not only in its amazing effects, but also in its incredible alternative summoning condition. Alright, and that's the list. Are there any other great 1 material extra deck monsters we may have missed, or do you have any ideas for future topics just like this one? If so, let us know down in the comments below.